Here are the rhythms. Yeah. This seminar is on limbic system. Important, one of very important topic. It is regarding your nation and also the understanding of human behavior. So, Sarthak was the presenter, not Dr. She is the start.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to present a seminar on limbic system. We'll study it in the following series: history, then anatomy, which includes components of the limbic system and circuits, functions, emotional learning and memory, and limbic system in second. Introduction. Historical aspects of limbic system. Thomas Willis in 1664 gave the term cerebral limbus. Paul Broca in 1878 gave it the term grand lobe limbic, the great limbic lobe. James Pepys in 1937 called it a Pepys circuit, and Paul MacLean in 1952 gave it a limbic system. The limbic system, is derived from the word limbus, which means border, which refers to a ring of gray matter on the medial aspects of the cerebral hemisphere. Now, the components of limbic system. The limbic system consists of the cortical structures and the subcortical structures. In the cortical structure, there is limbic cortex and the hippocampal limbic cortex and the hippocampal formation. And the subcortical structures, there will be amygdala, hypothalamus. In the limbic cortex is divided into two: cingulate gyrus and the parahippocampal gyrus. The hippocampus campal formation is divided into three: the dentate gyrus, the hippocampus, and the subicular complex. The amygdala, the septal area, and the hypothalamus. Limbic lobe, it is situated in the inferomedial aspect of the cerebral hemispheres. It consists of two concentric gyri surrounding the corpus callosum, as you can see in this picture. The limbic gyrus consists of the limbic lobe basically consists of cingulate gyrus, then the isthmus, then the parahippocampal gyrus, and then this annulus. The cingulate gyrus. That is situated on the dorsal corpus callosum, heavily interconnected with the association areas of the cerebral cortex. It receives input from the anterior nucleus of the thalamus and the neocortex, somatosensory area of the somatosensory area of the cerebral cortex. And it is involved in emotion formation, processing, learning, memory, and it has a central role in attention, feeling of safety and security. It is a satisfaction center of the brain and is associated with the feeling of satisfaction after meal or sexual intercourse. Then the parahippocampal gyrus. It is situated in the medial temporal lobe, and it contains distinct areas, which most important being entorhinal complex. So as you can see in this picture, there is entorhinal complex, then there is pararhinal complex, and then there is in this red, there is parahippocampal. This is parahippocampal complex. So the role, it has an important role in memory encoding and retrieval. So this this structure, this is hippocampus, and near to this hippocampus there is parahippocampal gyrus. In this parahippocampal gyrus is divided into entorhinal complex, which is the major portion, this one, then the pararhinal complex. So this parahippocampal gyrus has important role in memory encoding and retrieval. So from this entorhinal complex, the information goes to the hippocampus, from which it goes to the from the hippocampus it goes to this phonics, and phonics to the mammillary bodies. Now the hippocampal formation. Hippocampal formation consists of the following. It consists of a hippocampus, dentate gyrus, subiculum, gyrus fasciolaris, indusium glycium, and medial and lateral longitudinal striae. The point to remember is that parahippocampal gyrus is not a part of hippocampal formation. Hippocampus, it lies on the floor of the inferior horn of the lateral ventricle in the temporal lobe. The anterior end of the hippocampus is expanded and notched and resembles the foot, and it is called as pars hippocampi. Subiculum is the interconnecting area that connects the three-layered hippocampus to a six-layered neocortex cortex, that is the parahippocampal cortex. The ventricular surface of the hippocampus is covered by a layer of nerve fiber that constitute the alveolus. The fibers of alveolus pass medially and collect in the form of film. So this is parahippocampal gyrus. This part is tuberculum, which is a connecting zone between a three-layered hippocampus and a six-layered neocortex, that is parahippocampal gyrus. This hippocampus is further divided on the basis of cells into three layers: the molecular layer, the pyramidal layer, and the polymorphic layer. Into these three layers, and on the basis of density of the pyramidal cells, this hippocampus is again divided into CA1 to CA4 regions. And CA1 region is the most sensitive area of the brain, most sensitive area of the isthmus for ischemic injuries. Then indusium glycium. Indusium glycium is a vestigial gray matter over the corpus callosum. This is indusium glycium, the red color structure over here. and continues with the gyrus fasciolaris. A dentate gyrus occupies the interval between hippocampus and the parahippocampal gyri, and it receives input from the inducium glycium, and its efferent goes to the hippocampus. Now the connections of hippocampus. Hippocampus receive input from the dentate gyrus, area number 28 of the entorhinal complex of the parahippocampal gyrus, from the amygdala, and from the olfactory cortex. From the hippocampus, pyramidal cells, they form nerve fibers from the pyramidal cell, they form alveus. The alveus combine to form fimbriae, and fimbriae they combine to form pleura. Pleura of the fornix, that is the left pleura and the right pleura, from the respective left and right hippocampus, which combine to form the body of the hippocampus. This body, which combine to form the body of the fornix, and this body of the fornix finally relays into mammillary body and form Pepys circuit to opposite hippocampus, and relays into hypothalamus and the septal nuclei. The function, the hippocampus, it acts as an integrative center which influences endocrine through hypothalamus, visceral through septal nucleus, and emotional states through its connection to hypothalamus, septal, and cingulate gyrus. It has important role in recent memory. So hippocampus is involved in converting immediate memory to long-term, short-term memories to long-term. Pepys circuit, it was given by James Pepys in 1937. It is a cortical control of emotion and emotional expression. So it is concerned with short-term memory. Pepys circuit is concerned with short-term memory. So Pepys circuit, it starts with the hippocampal formation. Through the fornix, it goes to mammillary bodies. Mammillary bodies through the mammillothalamic tract to the anterior nucleus of the thalamus, and to the cingulate gyrus, and then to the parahippocampal gyrus. Parahippocampal, and again back to the hippocampal formation. Pepys discovered the circuit after injecting rabies virus into a cat's hippocampus and monitoring the progression through brain. Amygdala is identified by Budesh in early 19th century, is the almond-shaped structure within the temporal lobe. It is a collection of nuclei lying beneath the uncus. So these are the connections of amygdala. Amygdala is an almond-shaped structure below uncus. It receives its afferent from the olfactory cortex, various association areas in the cerebral cortex, in the parahippocampal gyrus, from the parahippocampal gyrus, and from the opposite side limbic system. From the major outputs of the amygdala are stria terminalis and ventral amygdalofugal fibers. Out of these two, stria terminalis and ventral amygdalofugal fibers. Stria terminalis is the major output of the amygdala. It finally relays in hypothalamus and in the septal nucleus. And through ventral amygdalofugal fibers, a few fibers which directly relay in the hypothalamus. Functions of amygdala is controlling the somatic response to internal needs, drives, or instinct. It controls emotional behavior, and it has a role in olfaction mediated sexual behaviors. Then the septal regions. On the medial septal region, this is the third part of the limbic system. It lies in the frontal lobe, on the medial aspect of the frontal lobe, beneath the genu and the rostrum of the corpus callosum, and it includes paraterminal and the olfactory gyrus. Hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is a small structure within the diencephalon. It has 4 grams. It is a 4 gram of the neural tissue, or 0.3% of the total brain. Boundaries: anterior to the thalamus there is optic chiasma. Posteriorly there is mammillary bodies, as it lie in the floor of the fourth ventricle. So anteriorly there is optic chiasma, posteriorly there are mammillary bodies, inferiorly there will be structures in the floor of fourth ventricle, then superiorly there is thalamus, and laterally internal capsule, and medially there will be cavity of the third ventricle. So the hypothalamus is subdivided from the medial to lateral. into periventricular zone, intermediate zone, and lateral zone. And from anterior to posteriorly, it is divided into preoptic region, supraoptic region, tuberal region, and mammillary regions. So according to the regions, there are nuclei in hypothalamus. In the preoptic region, which lie above the optic chiasma, there will be preoptic nucleus. Then there will be supraoptic region. There will be supraoptic nucleus, anterior nucleus, and the paraventricular nucleus. In the tuberal region, there will be ventromedial nucleus, dorsomedial nucleus, and arcate nucleus. And in the mammillary region, there will be posterior nucleus and mammillary. So functions of hypothalamus include from the preoptic nucleus. It is involved in regulation of release of gonadotropin hormone. The supraoptic and the paraventricular nucleus produce ADH and oxytocin hormone. The anterior nucleus, it regulates body temperature by dissipation of heat. Whereas the posterior nucleus, anterior nucleus regulates body temperature by dissipation of heat, whereas the posterior nucleus regulates body temperature by conservation of heat. So anterior nucleus is also involved in regulation of water balance. Then arcate nucleus or infundibular nucleus, it produces hypothalamic releasing factor. Then ventromedial nucleus, it is a satiety center and inhibits the urge to eat. And the dorsomedial nucleus, it causes obesity and result in the savage behavior. That is a food-seeking behavior. Then the posterior nucleus, it regulates body temperature by conservation of the heat and stimulates sympathetic system. And the lateral nucleus, its stimulation, induces eating. Now the functions of limbic system. The functions of limbic system involve olfaction, autonomic responses through hypothalamus, appetite and eating behavior through hypothalamus, sleep and dreams, emotional responses like fear, rage, placidity, autonomic and endocrine responses through amygdala, sexual behaviors through amygdala, addiction and motivation and memory through hypothalamus and social cognition. So the part of the limbic system, first cingulate gyrus. Cingulate gyrus, it is involved in autonomic function regulating heart rate, blood pressure, as well as cognitive, attentional, and emotional processing via its output through output to hypothalamus. Parahippocampal gyrus is involved in memory. Hippocampus, long-term memory. Amygdala, anxiety, aggression, fear, emotional memory, and social cognition. Hypothalamus, it mainly regulates the autonomic nervous system via hormone production and release. And it also regulates blood pressure, heart rate, hunger, thirst, sexual arousal, and circadian rhythm. Mammillary body is involved in memory, and nucleus accumbens in reward centers and addiction. Reward and punishment function of the limbic system. So in the limbic system, there are nucleus. So the lateral and the ventromedial nucleus of the hypothalamus is the primary reward center or the pleasure center. The supplementary reward centers are septum, amygdala, and certain areas of thalamus and basal ganglia. Similarly, the punishment centers or pain centers are periaqueductal gray matter, periventricular zone of thalamus and hypothalamus, and supplementary punishment centers are amygdala or hypothalamus. So what is the importance of this reward or punishment center? The stimulus that cause neither reward nor pain is hardly remembered at all, as animal become habituated to the particular stimulus and then ignored. If the stimulus is associated with any reward or pain, on repetitive stimulation, there is reinforcement, and animal develops a strong memory traces for those sensations. Thus, reward and punishment center help in learning and memory. So, limbic system and psychiatry. In psychiatry, if there is hypolimbic system, a hypolimbic is in depression, is in apathy, amnesia, Kluver-Bucy syndrome, and in anxiety and panic. A hyperlimbic is in mania, OCD, and in rage. First is Alzheimer's disease. In Alzheimer's disease, there is neurodegenerative changes in the limbic system. The amygdalic protein build up and form an amygdalic plaque. There will be neurofibrillary tangles inside that lead to neuronal death. Hippocampus is one of the first area to degenerate and that lead to anterograde amnesia. Cortex also degenerate early and that may lead to retrograde amnesia and dementia. Then there is Kluver-Bucy syndrome. There is neurobehavioral syndrome associated with bilateral lesion in the medial temporal lobe, particularly the amygdala. So in Kluver-Bucy syndrome, there will be facial blunting, there will be hyperphagia, hyperorality, that is marked tendency to examine all objects orally. There will be hypermetamorphosis, the irresistible impulse to attend and react to the visual stimuli. There will be inappropriate sexual behavior, atypical sexual behavior, because amygdala is responsible for controlling sexual behavior, and visual agnosia or psychic blindness, inability to visually recognize objects. Korsakoff syndrome is an amnestic syndrome that is caused by thiamine deficiency. It is associated with poor nutritional habits of people with chronic alcohol abuse, gastric carcinoma, and hemodialysis. It leads to damage in the mammillary bodies and dorsomedial nucleus of the thalamus. Symptoms include amnesia, confabulation, attention deficit, disorientation, vision impairment, change in personality like lack of initiative, spontaneity, lack of interest or concern, and executive function deficit. Recent memory, in this recent memory is more affected than remote memory, and recall is usually preserved. Limbic system in schizophrenia. In schizophrenia, there is marked limbic system is markedly affected. There will be ventricular enlargement, reduced limbic volume, decreased size of the hippocampus and the thalami, decreased amygdala in response during a facial recognition task during an fMRI study, decreased activity in dorsal prefrontal cortex, decreased size of the hippocampus, and reduced number of GABAergic cells in the cingulate and anterior thalamus with resultant glutaminergic excitotoxicity. In limbic system and bipolar disorder, there will be reduction in the volume of frontal lobes, basal ganglia, amygdala, and hippocampus. So there is decreased activity of prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate gyrus. There is decreased activity in the prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate gyrus, which is the center of integration of attentional and emotional output and help in effortful control of the emotional arousal. In ADHD and OCD, which are hyperlimbic condition, there is disrupted connection between the amygdala and the orbitofrontal cortex, which may contribute to behavioral disinhibition as seen in individuals with ADHD. And in OCD, PET imaging studies show increased glucose metabolism in orbital gyri. It is postulated that orbitofrontal thalamic hyperactivity give rise to obsessive thoughts. These are my references.
Questions, if any, by guys?
आयुषी, तूने रिकॉर्ड नहीं किया था?